Kızım doğru darı yüzü sığma. Olmak sevgilim proses kaldı.
There was once a farm owned by a farmer. He was not just any farm. He was the best farm the world had ever seen. Some might say the greatest even. But the farm had a specialty. The farm only grew fruits. It was a farm like no other. If you were from that farm, it would be a status. You should be proud of the fact that you're from such a great farm. You're not like the other crops. Not at all. You're special. Distinct. Lately though, the yields have not been so well. The sales of the farm has not been up to par. Not as much as it used to be at least. People aren't buying as much from the store as before. I mean, they aren't doing that bad. Not to the point of bankruptcy or anything, just not as good as before. You see, people eventually started to buy more of a specific few fruits. A selected few. It got to a point where only 1% of the types of fruits in the farm were making 50% of the sales. And the other fruits couldn't do anything about it. It was the law of the farm, after all, an anti-socialistic idea of profit over the fruits themselves. If you're not selling, well, tough luck. Your fault. This is definitely not because the selected fruits were advertised more, placed in the frontier shelves, exposed to more people than your average fruit. Nothing like that. The top percent fruits were selling more. What did the farmer even have to complain about? It's not like those fruit elites would become more powerful than the farmer itself because of their massive influence, right? Of course not. Eventually, the customers started to become bored of the fruits, and the farm was losing sales. They keep buying this top percentile of fruits, and eventually, they're starting to lose the variety. So the sales keep decreasing as the farm keeps maximizing profits over their own fruits. Now, the farmer is getting distressed. He doesn't know what to do. The customers aren't buying from him, so he can't keep the fruits alive, since eventually it will collapse. How on earth will he help these poor crops? The living standards of the crops are decreasing. The elite fruits cover more soil than they would ever need. So the other 99% of the crops end up competing for lesser and lesser soil, causing the prices of the plots to skyrocket. They aren't reproducing because they're too stressed about their own livelihood. The situation is getting worse by the second and it's not looking too good for the farm. These weren't the only issues too. There were some jobs in the farm that simply weren't being done. The fruits, comfortable in their status, had long since stopped doing the dirty work. The heavy lifting, the soil turning, the blue-collar grunt work that keeps the farm functioning as a society. It's been going undone for years. The farmer needed help, not just for the sales, but for the farm to physically function. So the farmer thinks up an idea. The farmer decides to introduce a new form of crops. Vegetables. They're a lower-cost alternative that would bring in more sales, yes, but more importantly, they would fill the gaps that the fruits had left behind. They grew up in poorer farms, which did not have as high-quality living standards as a great fruit farm. They came here looking for a better life. They also had a pretty low maintenance cost. Hardworking by nature, they had to come from where they were coming from. And so, the vegetables are accepted by the fruits into the farm with open arms. Except for a few weird and hateful ones. But at the end of the day, they were all crops, and they came from seeds. The fruit farm now became the fruit and a little bit of vegetable farm. And would you look at that? The farm has now started doing better than before. It's starting to bring in profit. New people are starting to buy fruits and vegetables from the farm. Most of the people still buy top 1% of the fruits, but at least people are buying vegetables and the rest of the 99% as well. Hell, people appealed by the vegetables decide to buy more of the 99% as well. The vegetables end up helping 99% sell more. Net gain for the farm and the farmer. Other than a small percentage of the money that the vegetables earn getting sent back to their old poor farms to help them, the majority of their money gets reinvested into this farm, which in turn helps the new vegetables and the fruits. So years passed by and it wasn't easy. Let's not pretend like it was. The vegetables didn't just learn the ways of the farm. They abandoned their own. The way they spoke, the way they dressed, the things they celebrated slowly filed down. The older vegetables, the ones who remembered where they came from, held onto the old ways and got quietly pushed to the edges of the farm for it. The younger ones assimilated so completely they were largely unrecognizable as vegetables anymore. And still, it wasn't enough. Because you see, here's the thing about the acceptance the vegetables received. It was always conditional. You're welcome here as long as you're useful, as long as you stay quiet, as long as you don't start asking for the same plot sizes, the same treatment, the same respect. The moment a vegetable reached for what a fruit had, the warmth disappeared fast. And yet, despite all of that, the vegetable gave back to the farm more than most fruits ever did. They were becoming a key part of this beautiful farm, not just surviving in it, but also building it. But remember the top 1% holding 50% of the sales? Yeah, it's been getting pretty bad. Actually, it's way worse than before. Blackstone, BlackRock, and others now hold about 30% of all the plots available in the farm to grow. These same fruits have been getting all the fertilizers, premium water, and everything, splurging money on useless things that are overall bad for this ecosystem. Fruits and vegetables that have started to grow up and leave their parent shoots can't seem to afford the plots, as more and more crops are competing for less and less soil. They're getting restless. They feel that something is wrong. They just can't figure out what though. And the elite fruits knew that. They could see the restlessness build up. They knew that if the other crops ever stopped and actually looked at the numbers, like really looked at it, the fingers would point at them directly. So they need the finger to point somewhere else. And they decided to come up with a brilliant idea. You see, they didn't have to lie and deceive the masses. They just had to control what people were looking at. A vegetable commits a crime, front page of the news. Everybody's talking about it, every single detail. The farm is outraged. A fruit commits the same crime, nobody says shit. That's the whole trick. Just keep repeating what you want the crops to see and keep quiet about the rest. Eventually, the uneducated crops will start connecting the dots that were never meant to be connected. And connect the dots they did. The 99% of fruits who were themselves struggling couldn't afford plots either, who were watching their own living standards drop. They were desperate for an explanation, and the vegetables were right there, visibly different and easy to point at. So what did the top crops do? They executed this brilliant action. Some might even say the greatest there ever was. They simply guided the finger of the fruits to point at the vegetables. The dirty, filthy vegetables. They blamed the vegetables for everything. The ones at the top started funding voices of the farm, voices of crops that would say out loud what the elite fruits wouldn't say themselves. After all, in this farm, words are power. The message was pretty simple and repeated constantly. The vegetables are taking your plot, stealing your sales, lowering the standards of the farm. Vegetable equals bad, fruit equals good. Look, it's not your fault that you can't get a proper job or can't buy your own plot. And definitely not the fault of the top 1%. How preposterous. The top 1% hoarding all the soil with their immense wealth? You gotta be kidding. Of course not. So that leaves only one person to blame: the vegetables. Slowly, the regular fruits started believing it as well. They're angry about their current situation, and now they have somewhere to put it. Some fruits that were previously friendly with vegetables start keeping their distance. The vegetables notice this, but they don't fully understand why this is happening to them yet. But educated people would second guess themselves before playing the blame game. You see, the vegetables statistically pay more into the farm. They commit fewer crimes than the fruits per capita. They fill the jobs the farms literally cannot function without. Now, this all accumulates into one breaking point when the old farmer decides to step down. A new farmer is now going to take care of the farm. The new farmer doesn't pretend to care about all the crops equally. He states out loud about who he favors. The elite fruits love him. Suddenly, what was once whispered is now policy, and the vegetables face the consequences. Actual attempts to remove vegetables from the farm are taken. Crops are discriminately rooted from their soil to be thrown away. The vegetables who built themselves up, assimilated, and contributed to the farm are now facing the door. And what a sick joke this is. Because everybody knows that if all the vegetables are kicked out, the farm literally cannot function properly. Do the elitists ever think about this? Do they ever stop and ask themselves if what they're doing is morally right or not? Or are they blinded by their own lies? Do they not look at the destruction they are creating? Do they not have a hint of pride left in them? Because it's pretty obvious that the moment the farm collapses, they will take all their assets and run to another farm to start the process all over again. This playbook has been repeated before. We saw the ending through mass hunger, famine, depression, inflation on the average crop in many different farms. In this case, countries. When will this ever stop? When will the racial discrimination against vegetables stop? Thank you for watching.
Sometimes I just sat down and looked, trying to soak up the feeling of things living and growing. It was all there spread out in front of me, if I could only understand it.